Hi, Tubby and Coos fans. It's me, Candice, here for your Wednesday noon What's New This Week update. So, I'm going to talk about a couple of books that came out today, and one book that actually came out last week that I didn't talk about last week, but I wanted to add to this week's broadcast. So, coming at you are books that I'm excited about that have come out this week. So, let's get into it. The first book that I want to talk to you about is a book called Stealing Thunder by Alina Boyden. And I have been really excited about this book ever since my rep told me about it a long time ago. My rep, Virginia, knows how excited I've been for this book for a really long time. It sounds really, really great. So this book is about a trans woman, and it is an epic fantasy. And this woman's name is Razia Khan. And Razia was raised to be the crown prince of Nizam, the most powerful kingdom in her world. And born, of course, with the soul of a woman, she ran away at a young age to escape her father's hatred and to live life as her true. And she sisterhood and discovers a new purpose in life amongst the Hijras of Bikampur, which is a group of women that she finds that gives her a purpose. And by day, she's one of their finest dancers, and by night, she is its most profitable thief. So her latest target leads her to cross paths with the Prince of Bikampur. And of course, she gets something stolen, and an immediate connection with the prince changes her life forever. She finds herself embroiled in a very dangerous political war. The stakes are greater than any heist she's ever performed. So yes, this is also a heist book, and y'all know how I feel about heist books. I love heists. So of course, when the battle ends up bringing her face to face with her father, she has the chance to reclaim everything she lost and save her prince. So this is an epic fantasy. It is a trans main character. It's a heist book. It's got a lot of things that really excite me. So I'm super, super excited that this book is out. Again, it's called Stealing Thunder by Alina Boyden. Check that one out. The next book I'm going to talk about is called The Queen of the Unwanted by Jenna Glass. This is actually the second book in a series. The first one was called Women's War. And that fantasy epic as well. So in Women's Mary Spell gives women the ability to control their own fertility. And of course, the consequences of that rock their patriarchal society to its core. And so in the first book, it's a nobleman's duty, of course, in this world, it is a nobleman's duty to produce a male heir. So women are treated like possessions and bargaining chips. But then this spell that allows women to control their own fertility sort of alters the world physically and culturally, because women finally have a bargaining chip of their own. So that's sort of the premise of this series. In this second book, it's called Queen of the Unwanted. And in this book, a caravan of exiled women and their escort of disgraced soldiers stumble upon a new source of magic in the uninhabitable desert, or in what was once uninhabitable. And so this new magic, of course, only women can wield it again, might well tear down what's left of the patriarchy. So the men who currently hold power will, of course, do anything to retain that power. But of course, there are these generations of women who have tasted freedom for the first time. And so you'll be able to see what happens with that. So this is the sequel to the Women's War. The ability to do magic has now given women control over their own bodies. And they now have to learn how to rule as women, which is another central theme of this book. And so this one sounds really good as well. I haven't read The Women's War yet, but I've heard that it's very, very good. So the sequel, I'm sure, will be just as good. So check that one out. Queen of the Unwanted of the Women's War series by Jenna Glass. Christopher Moore has a new book out this week called Shakespeare for Squirrels. Christopher Moore is hysterical. If you haven't read anything by him, he is really funny. He wrote a book about Jesus's best friend, Biff. And that book is hilarious. It's called Lamb, if you haven't read that book. And so I'm really a big fan. He has a lot of books, and all of his books are really, really funny. So this is Christopher Moore's newest book, Shakespeare for Squirrels. And in this book, it's kind of touted as Shakespeare meets Dashiell Hammett. It is a murder mystery. And it is like a hard-boiled take on Shakespeare's most performed play, which is A Midsummer Night's Dream, featuring Pocket, who is the hero of Fool and the Serpent of Venice, who are two other Christopher Moore books, along with his sidekick Drool and his pet monkey Jeff. And so this is a retelling of A Midsummer Night's Dream. So Pocket is the hero of the book. And he's been seen in some other Christopher Moore stuff. He is set adrift by his pirate crew in the Serpent of Venice, and we haven't seen him since that book. In this book, he washes up on the shores of Greece, and he hopes to dazzle the Duke with comedic brilliance and become the Duke's trusted fool. But of course, the island is in turmoil. The Duke's minister is furious that his daughter is determined to marry, someone else besides the man he's chosen for her. And the Duke decrees that if by the time of the wedding, his daughter still refuses to marry the man he wants her to marry, that he's going to execute her or consign her to a nunnery. And so Pocket, of course, being Pocket, can't help but point out that this decree is complete crap and that the Duke is a weasel for even having suggested it. And of course, the Duke orders Pocket's death, and Pocket makes a daring escape, goes into this wooden realm of the Fairy King, and the Fairy King is short a fool, and so Pocket gets an offer he can't refuse and goes there. And of course, if you know A Midsummer Night's Dream, pretty much every character has a motive for wanting the mischievous sprite dead, right? So in here, Pocket is the mischievous sprite. So of course, lots of people want Pocket dead. So there's a lot of suspects and very little time. And Pocket must work on his own magic to find truth and save his own self and ensure that everything ends well. So this is a really hilarious and fun tale of magic, madness, murder, love. It is A Midsummer Night's Dream, of course, wicked and brilliantly funny, because it's something only Christopher Moore can do. So check that out, Shakespeare for Squirrels by Christopher Moore, which sounds really great to me. I love Christopher Moore. The next book I'm going to talk about is called Superman Smashes the Klan, and that is really the title of this book. Superman Smashes the Klan. And it's actually a middle grade graphic novel, part of the DC Zoom series from DC. And in this one, Superman Smashes the Klan. That's pretty much correct. This is by Jean Luen Yang. And it takes place in 1946. And there are these two teenagers, Roberta and Tommy Lee. They've just moved with their parents from Chinatown to the center of Metropolis, which of course is the home to Superman. And Tommy makes friends quickly. Roberta pines for home. But then one night, their family awakens to find their house surrounded by the Klan. And Superman leaps into action, but his exposure to this mysterious green rock has left him weak. So Roberta and Tommy have to help him smash the Klan. So this is inspired by the 1940s Superman radio serial, Clan of the Fiery Cross. It was actually on the radio in the 40s. Jean Luen Yang is a New York Times bestselling author. He's written a bunch of stuff. And the artist for this book also worked on Avatar: The Last Airbender. And so they bring us this very personal retelling of two different immigrants trying to find ways to belong. And also Superman actually smashes the Klan. So this book is really great. and really good for kids. It can teach them. It's like it has, of course, the Klan in there, but it's not super overly intense. So I think it would be a good learning experience for kids as well. It's meant for kids. It's a middle grade graphic novel, but it's really great for adults as well. So check that one out. Superman Smashes the Klan. It is my kind of book. And lastly, I want to talk about a book. Sorry, I think my video went out there. The last book I want to talk about actually came out last week, but I wanted to talk about it now because I didn't get to talk about it last week. And that is a new book from musician Tori Amos, and it's called Resistance, a songwriter's story of hope, change, and courage. As a person who was a teenager in the 90s, Tori Amos and her music meant a whole lot to me growing up. And so it was really cool to find out that she came out with a book. And so this book is a call to action for engaging with our current political moment. Of course, from Tori Amos, Grammy-nominated, multi-platinum singer-songwriter, and she's actually a New York Times bestselling author already. So yeah, Tori Amos, since the release of Little Earthquakes, which was her career-defining first album, her first solo album, she has really been one of the most ingenious artists, I think, in the music industry. And she, in this book, in her life, she began playing piano as a teenager for hotel bars in Washington, D.C. And so this tells her story of her time as a hungry artist in Los Angeles to the subsequent 3 decades of her formidable musical career. And she explains how she managed to create meaningful, politically resonant work against patriarchal power structures, how her declarations of feminism and her fight for the marginalized have always proved to be her guiding light. She teaches us to engage with intention in this tumultuous global climate. And she speaks directly to supporters of Me Too and Time's Up. She, of course, was sexually assaulted, and she depicted that in her song called Me and a Gun on her post-September 11th album. And so, and other albums as well. And so she talks about that in this book, and as well as young people fighting for their rights and visibility in the world. This book is filled with compassionate guidance and actionable advice, and using some of the most powerful songs and political songs in Tori Amos's canon. This book is really for anyone who is determined to steer the world back in the right direction. I've always loved Tori Amos. I love her even more now than I did when I was a teenager. And if you're a fan of hers, you definitely want to read this. If you're not a fan of hers, I think this will make you a fan of hers. So check that one out. It's called Resistance by Tori Amos, who is amazing. And so those are the books that I have for you today. So going back over them again, the first was Stealing Thunder by Alina Boyden. This has a trans main character in an epic fantasy situation, and also a heist story. So those are 3 of my favorite things. So this is very, very exciting to me. We have Queen of the Unwanted, which is the sequel to The Women's War. And this is an epic fantasy with a feminist twist to it, where women are the ones with magic. And what does that do to the world? So also really interesting. The Women's War is the first one. If you haven't read that one, read that one before this one. This is the sequel. Christopher Moore, Shakespeare for Squirrels, which is a retelling of A Midsummer Night's Dream in, of course, the hilarious way that only Christopher Moore can do it, with his hero Pocket, who has been in a couple of his other books. We have Superman Smashes the Klan, which is exactly what it says, meant for middle graders. It's part of the DC Zoom series. And also really great. And finally, Tori Amos, Resistance, which is Tori Amos's book about dealing with today's political climate, and sort of a memoir as well, and all told through her particular music. So check all of those out. Of course, as always, you can order books from us on our website, tubbyandcoos.com. There's a big button that says place order. You can definitely use that. If you want to place an order, you can also always go to our bookshop site, bookshop.org/shop/Tubby and Coos. If you go to tubbyandcoos.com, pretty much everything is right there on our front page. So you can shop, you can buy gift cards, you can shop bookshop, you can toss us a coin into our virtual tip jar. All of that stuff is right there on our home page. So if you enjoy this content that we are bringing you very regularly now, definitely toss us a coin into our virtual tip jar. That actually helps pay for all this live streaming stuff. I'm trying to buy some better cameras for us so that we can kind of get stuff from different angles. And so all of that will help us buy the equipment we need to make our live streams even better than they already are. So if you like this, please go toss us a coin into our virtual tip jar. Order books, continue to order from us. And of course, I'll be here every Wednesday talking about new books that I'm excited for that week. So thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you so much for all of your support. And I will see y'all next week.